7 Forgotten Powers of the Mind. Introduction. Before you decide what you're about to hear, let me ask you something that's almost embarrassingly simple. How many times have you known something before you could explain it? Not guessed, not hoped, not maybe. I mean that quiet, immediate certainty that rises from somewhere deeper than thought. A certainty that arrives whole, without effort, like a sealed letter placed in your hand. You've felt it. A sudden unease that makes you take a different street. A strange calm that tells you to say yes when your logic says no. A moment where a person walks into the room and you feel the temperature of the air change, even before a word is spoken. And later, sometimes minutes later, sometimes months, you look back and realize the signal was clean. You just didn't trust it. Most people live as if the only real world is the visible one. They trust what they can measure, what they can show, and what they can defend in conversation. But your life has been shaped by invisible forces from the very beginning. Your expectations, your inner dialogue, your emotional habits, your private images, your silent assumptions about what is possible and what is forbidden. That's not poetry. That's cause and effect. Your outer world follows your inner world the way a shadow follows a body. It doesn't always follow quickly, and it doesn't always follow neatly, but it follows with stubborn consistency. If you repeatedly imagine loss, your body learns fear. If you repeatedly rehearse rejection, you train your mind to search for proof. If you repeatedly speak inwardly with defeat, you program your nervous system to expect obstacles before you even begin. Now here's where this becomes more than mindset. Because buried under the noise of modern life, under constant stimulation, under stress, under distraction, there are dormant capacities that once guided human beings with precision, not as superstition, not as a fantasy, as functions of consciousness that become stronger when the mind becomes disciplined and the emotions become coherent. Some people call them gifts, some call them powers. I'm going to call them what they actually are, abilities that awaken when the inner world is trained. And the reason you've forgotten them is not because they disappeared, it's because you were conditioned away from them. The world trained you to worship what is loud, urgent, external, and measurable. It trained you to distrust what is subtle, quiet, internal, and intuitive. It trained you to ignore your own signals until your life became a series of reactions instead of creations. So over the next hour, you're going to do something rare. You are going to return to the control room. You are going to learn 7 hidden abilities that already operate in you, sometimes weakly, sometimes randomly, sometimes only in moments of crisis. So you can stop experiencing them like accidents and start using them like tools. Not to control other people, not to escape reality, not to chase spectacle, but to master the thing that shapes reality first, your inner state. And I want to be very clear about what this is and what it isn't. This isn't motivational shouting. This isn't vague mysticism. This is a mental and spiritual training, because the mind can be trained, the subconscious can be impressed, and life can be altered by changing the inner pattern that produces the outer result. If you listen carefully, you'll notice something. The people who rise, the people who heal, the people who rebuild after collapse, the people who become powerful without becoming bitter, they all share one secret in common. They do not treat their inner life as an afterthought. They guard it. They direct it. They use it. They don't wait for confidence. They rehearse it. They don't wait for luck. They prepare the mind to recognize opportunity. They don't wait for life to change. They change the inner command, and life responds in time. So here is the agreement I want you to make with yourself before we begin. Don't try to believe everything. That's not your job. Your job is to listen as if you are testing a principle, to notice what resonates, to apply what is practical, to take the ideas that strengthen you and put them into immediate use. Because the moment you begin directing your inner world with intention, you will notice something almost unsettling. Life starts answering you, not always in fireworks, sometimes in quiet shifts, better timing, cleaner decisions, a stronger sense of self, a surprising calm, a door that opens because you stopped radiating doubt. And once you experience that even once, you won't be the same. Now let's begin with the first ability, the one that most people already taste, but almost no one trains, the power of inner knowing. Chapter 1. The Power of Inner Knowing. There is a voice inside you that speaks before your thoughts form a sentence. It doesn't argue. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't beg for attention. It simply knows. And the tragedy is that many people hear it, and then talk themselves out of it in under 10 seconds. Let me give you a simple scene. A person is about to send a message. Nothing dramatic, just a text. The kind of message that seems harmless. But the moment they begin to type, a tightness appears in the chest, a faint pressure behind the eyes, a subtle warning, don't send it. They pause. Then the mind rushes in like a lawyer. You're overthinking. You're being dramatic. It's fine. Stop being afraid. You'll regret it if you don't. So they send it. And an hour later, the result arrives. Misunderstanding, conflict, a door closing, a chain reaction that didn't need to happen. And they say, I knew it. Yes, you did. But you didn't respect the signal. Inner knowing is not magic. It's not supernatural theatre. It is the subconscious mind reading patterns faster than your conscious mind can name them. Your subconscious absorbs tone, timing, micro-expressions, inconsistencies, energy, history, and emotional undercurrents. It keeps records you didn't realize you recorded. It calculates risk and alignment in the background. Then it produces a feeling, a pull forward, a pull away, a quiet certainty, a sudden heaviness, a calm yes, a clean no. And if you've been trained to distrust yourself, you will treat that signal as irrational. But the truth is, that signal is often your most intelligent guidance, because it is based on more data than your surface mind can hold. Now here's the real problem. Most people don't lack intuition. They lack stillness. Their inner world is so noisy that the signal gets drowned out. They're scrolling while deciding. They're anxious while listening. They're racing while evaluating. They want guidance, but they won't slow down enough to receive it. Inner knowing is subtle. It requires space. And the subconscious speaks best when the conscious mind stops shouting. So the first part of awakening this ability is not trying harder. It's quieting the interference, because you can't hear a whisper in a nightclub. Let's go deeper, because this is where people either become powerful or they stay confused. Your subconscious mind operates through repetition and emotion. Whatever you repeatedly accept as true, and whatever you repeatedly feel with intensity, gets planted like a seed, and once a seed is planted, the mind begins to organize your perception around it. It filters reality, it highlights evidence, it shapes choices, it creates your instincts. So, if you've spent years rehearsing fear, you will intuit danger everywhere, even when none exists. That's not intuition, that's conditioning. If you've spent years rehearsing unworthiness, you will sense rejection before it happens. That's not inner knowing, that's a program. Real inner knowing has a different texture, Fear is frantic. Intuition is clean. Fear screams, something's wrong. Intuition simply says, not this. Fear leaves you spinning. Intuition leaves you clear. If you learn that difference, you stop confusing anxiety for guidance, and that alone changes your life. Now I want to give you a practice you can use immediately, because the moment you test this, it becomes real to you. Tonight, or within the next 24 hours, do this once, just once. Sit somewhere alone for 3 minutes. No phone, no noise, no music. Close your eyes and bring to mind one decision you've been delaying, not 10 decisions. One, something real, something current. Now here's the key. Don't analyze it. Instead, ask a single question inwardly, as if you're speaking to the deeper part of you that already knows, what is the next step that brings peace? Then wait, not with strain, not with expectation, just wait. You may receive an image, you may receive a sentence, you may receive a sensation, expansion, contraction, calm or resistance. You may receive nothing at first. If you receive nothing, don't force it. End the session. But if you receive a signal, notice it and write it down immediately, without debate. Then here's the experiment. Over the next day, watch what happens when you honor that signal in a small way. Not a dramatic leap. A small action. A message was not sent. A call made. A boundary has been placed. A walk taken. A yes, a no. You are teaching your subconscious something important. I hear you, and I respond. And that is how the channel strengthens. Because inner knowing is like a muscle. Ignore it, and it weakens. Use it, and it becomes unmistakable. But there is an ethical law here, and you must respect it if you want this power to stay pure. Inner knowing is not for controlling other people. It's for governing yourself. The moment you start using your sensitivity to manipulate, to dominate, to prove your superiority, the signal becomes distorted. Why? Because your motive pollutes your perception. You begin hearing what you want to hear. You begin sensing what flatters you. You become a servant of your ego instead of a student of truth. So your discipline is simple. Use this ability for alignment, not advantage. Now, let me give you one more distinction that will save you years. Sometimes your inner knowing will guide you toward discomfort. That doesn't mean it's wrong. Growth often feels uncomfortable, not because it's dangerous, but because it is unfamiliar. So don't confuse challenging with wrong. The question is not, does it scare me? The question is, does it feel clean? A clean fear can be the doorway to a better life. A dirty yes is often the beginning of regret. You are learning discernment, and discernment is the first true power. Because once you can reliably sense what aligns with your highest good, you stop wasting years in places that were never meant for you. Now we're going to move into the second ability, because once you can sense the invisible signals inside yourself, you begin to sense them around others. You begin to feel what is unsaid. You begin to read the room before the room speaks, and you realize something that most people never understand. Communication is not primarily words. Communication is a state. Let's go there next. Chapter 2. The Power of Emotional Resonance. Most people think they feel because something happens, but the truth is you often feel something before it happens. You walk into a room and without any obvious reason, you sense tension. No one is shouting, no one is arguing, people are smiling, yet something in you tightens, as if your body received news your mind hasn't read yet. Or you meet someone who is perfectly polite, perfectly composed, and still you feel a strange heaviness around them. Not hatred, not drama, just a subtle drain, as if your energy is being asked to carry something that isn't yours. Then there are the opposite moments. You step into a conversation and you feel lighter, you feel expanded, you feel safe, you feel seen, even before the person says anything profound. That is not imagination. That is a real capacity, the ability to read the state, and the state is what runs the world. Words are a thin layer. Beneath them is the emotional field people carry, what they rehearse privately, what they suppress, what they fear, what they desire, what they refuse to admit. You can hide your words, you can edit your personality, you can curate your image, but it's difficult to hide your state from someone whose inner senses are awake. This ability is the reason you just know when someone is lying, even if their story makes sense. It's the reason you can feel someone's sadness behind their laughter. It's the reason a person's presence can calm you or agitate you without them doing anything at all. Now, here's what most people get wrong. They think this sensitivity is a weakness. They say, I'm too sensitive, I absorb everyone, I get drained, I overthink, I can't be around crowds. But sensitivity isn't the problem. Untrained sensitivity is the problem. If you don't know how this ability works, you become a sponge. If you train it, you become an instrument, precise, clean, and protected. Let's ground this. Your subconscious mind reads micro-signals constantly. Tone of voice, timing, eye movement, breathing rhythm, posture, the tiny delays between words, the incongruence between someone's smile and their eyes, the difference between a calm body and a body pretending to be calm. And it does more than read people. It reads environments. A home carries emotional residue, a workplace carries pressure, a conversation carries an agenda. Your nervous system detects these things before your logic catches up. That detection becomes a feeling, because feeling is the language the subconscious uses to communicate. So when you say, I can't explain it, I just feel it, what you're really saying is, my subconscious has already made a calculation, and it's delivering the result through sensation. This is why emotional resonance can become either a gift or a curse. If you're unconscious, you will mistake other people's emotions for your own. You will walk into a room and suddenly feel anxious, and you'll assume something is wrong with you. You'll talk to someone who is full of chaos, and you'll think you're the one losing clarity. You'll spend time with someone who's bitter, and you'll start hearing bitter thoughts in your own mind. That's not because you're weak. It's because your inner boundary isn't trained. And the first rule of this power is simple. You are not here to carry what you can perceive. Perception does not require absorption. You can feel a storm without becoming the storm. So how do you train it? First, you need one skill that changes everything. The ability to return to your own center quickly. Because the moment you return to center, your sensitivity becomes information instead of infection. Here is a practice you can use immediately. It's simple, but it's not childish. The next time you feel off around someone, do this internally, without changing your expression. Take one slow breath in, and as you exhale, silently say, back to me. That's it, back to me. Then notice, does your body feel lighter when you do that? Does the heaviness remain outside you instead of inside you? This phrase works because it gives your subconscious a command. You're telling your nervous system, stop merging, observe. Now add the second layer. Ask yourself one question. Is this feeling mine? Don't answer with thought. Answer with sensation. If the feeling is yours, it will stay even when you step away, even when you breathe, even when you detach. If it's not yours, you'll feel a slight separation the moment you ask, like a boundary being drawn. That boundary is not aggressive. It's not hatred, it's not rejection, it's sovereignty, and sovereignty is the foundation of every higher ability. Now let's talk about the part that people fear. Yes, this ability can make you feel exposed, because once you become sensitive, you realize how much is unspoken. You realize how many nice interactions are performances. You realize how often people smile while quietly competing, compliment while quietly resenting, agree while quietly resisting. And if you don't have maturity, you'll become cynical. You'll start judging everyone. You'll start feeling superior because you see through people. That's the fastest way to corrupt this power, because the moment your motive becomes ego, your perception becomes distorted. You begin sensing what confirms your bias. You begin reading shadows where there are none. You begin confusing your suspicion with truth. So here is the ethical law. Use resonance to understand, not to condemn. Sometimes what you sense in someone is pain, not evil. Sometimes it's fear, not malice. Sometimes it's insecurity wearing the mask of arrogance. Your sensitivity is not a weapon. It's a compass. Now there's one more thing you must learn, because it will protect you from exhaustion. If you are highly sensitive, you must learn to choose your inputs. You don't eat random food and expect your body to thrive. So why would you consume random emotions, random conversations, random chaos, random negativity, and expect your mind to remain clean? Your inner world is built from what you repeatedly allow into it. And this ability, emotional resonance, makes that 10 times more true for you than for the average person. So you become disciplined. You spend time with people who elevate your state. You limit exposure to environments that poison your mood. You stop calling overstimulation normal. You stop romanticizing burnout, because your state is your signal. And the clearer your state, the clearer your perception. Now you're ready for the next ability, because once you can sense a state, you begin to notice something shocking. Your emotions are not only responses. They are broadcasts. They influence rooms. They shape outcomes. They affect timing. They attract conversations. They invite or repel opportunities. And if that's true, then the next power is obvious. The power to deliberately shape your state, and therefore shape what life reflects back to you. Let's move into that now. Chapter 3. The Power of the Inner Image. There is a picture running inside you right now, not on paper, not on a screen, but in the private theater of your mind. And whether you realize it or not, that picture has been negotiating with reality on your behalf, because the subconscious mind does not move by logic first. It moves by imagery, by expectation, by the feeling tone of what you repeatedly accept as likely. You can tell a person 100 times, "I want to change," but if the inner image they carry is still the old version of themselves, struggling, invisible, unlucky, always behind, then their actions will quietly return to that image as a magnet returns to metal. Not because the universe is punishing them, because the mind seeks consistency. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because their inner picture contradicts their desire. They say they want freedom, but they picture themselves trapped. They say they want love, but they picture betrayal. They say they want success, but they picture humiliation. So they move through life with two commands running at the same time, one spoken, one silent. And the silent command wins. Let me make this simple. Your outer world is a mirror, but it is not a polite mirror. It does not reflect what you say you want. It reflects what you repeatedly impress upon the deeper mind. And impressions are made through three things: repetition, emotion, and image. That is why a single vivid memory can shape your behavior for years. That is why a humiliating moment in childhood can become a lifelong fear of visibility. That is why one powerful win can awaken a new identity overnight. The subconscious doesn't ask, Is this true? It asks, is this vivid? Is this repeated? Is this emotionally charged? If yes, it accepts it as a pattern. And then it begins doing what it was designed to do. It organizes your life around that pattern. It influences what you notice. It influences what you interpret. It influences what you choose. It influences what you tolerate. It influences what you expect from people. And slowly, without any dramatic moment, your life begins to look like your inner picture. Now here is the hidden power. You can change the picture. And when you change the picture with enough clarity and emotional authority, you begin to change your behavior without forcing it. This is not wishful thinking. This is how the mind works. Think about it. If you truly believed, deep down, that you were the kind of person who finishes what you start, you wouldn't need a motivational speech to keep going. You would feel discomfort when quitting, because quitting would contradict the picture. If you truly believed that you were valuable, you wouldn't beg for crumbs. You would feel resistance to disrespect, because disrespect would contradict the picture. If you truly believed that opportunities appear for you, you would start noticing them everywhere, because your attention would be trained to scan for proof. That scanning function is real. Your mind filters reality all day. There is too much information to take in, so your subconscious chooses what to highlight, and it highlights what matches the picture. So if your inner picture is, life is hard, people don't help, I always lose, your mind will find evidence everywhere. Not because it's the objective truth, but because your filter is set to that frequency. Change the filter and suddenly the world looks different. Same city, same people, same economy, different outcomes. Because you're not living in reality alone, you're living in your interpretation of reality, and your interpretation is shaped by the inner image. Now, most people use this power unconsciously and against themselves. They rehearse worst-case scenes like a ritual. They imagine failure while brushing their teeth. They relive old pain while driving. They picture embarrassment before a meeting. They picture rejection before they speak. They don't call it visualization, but that's exactly what it is. A mental movie played on repeat. And every time they play it, they impress it deeper. Then they wonder why confidence feels fake. It feels fake because the subconscious has been trained on the opposite picture. So the work here is not to fake positivity. The work is to replace the old image with a new one that feels clean, believable, and consistent. And to do it with discipline. Not all day. Not obsessively, but deliberately. Let me give you the practice. It's simple, but if you do it correctly, it changes you faster than most people believe is possible. Choose one identity upgrade, not 10. 1. Examples. I am a finisher. I am calm under pressure. I speak with authority. I attract high-quality opportunities. I am guided and protected. I am financially steady. I am respected. Pick the one that would change your life the most if it became natural. Now, don't start by forcing yourself to believe it. Start by building a scene. Because the subconscious understands scenes. Tonight, as you're falling asleep, or any time you can be quiet for 3 minutes, create a short, vivid inner scene that implies your identity is already true. A scene is not a lecture. A scene is a moment. If your new identity is I am a finisher, your scene could be you closing a laptop after completing a project, feeling that clean satisfaction, hearing someone say, "You always deliver." If your new identity is I am calm under pressure, your scene could be you in a tense moment, breathing slowly, speaking clearly, and seeing people relax because your state is stable. If your new identity is I am financially steady, your scene could be you checking an account balance with peace, paying something comfortably, or hearing yourself say, "It's handled," without anxiety. Make it short. 10 seconds, 15 seconds, then loop it slowly like a gentle tide, not as a desperate wish, as a rehearsed reality. Now here is the most important part, and most people miss it. Add the feeling tone, not excitement, not mania. Peace, relief, gratitude, calm certainty, because the feeling is the ink, the image is the letter. Feeling is what stamps it into the deeper mind. Do this for 3 minutes, then stop. Do not strain, do not force, do not argue with yourself. Just plant the seed and leave it alone. You're not trying to make something happen in those 3 minutes. You are training the subconscious to accept a new normal. And once the subconscious accepts a new normal, your choices begin to shift automatically. You'll speak differently without rehearsing. You'll walk differently without thinking. You'll tolerate less. You'll take opportunities you used to hesitate around. You'll notice openings you used to ignore, because your inner picture is now calling your attention forward. Now, let me warn you about the phase where people sabotage this power. When you begin changing the picture, old emotional habits will protest. Doubt will rise and say, "This is stupid." The past will rise and say, "Who do you think you are?" Circumstances will try to look final. This is where maturity is required. Circumstances are not final. They are often delayed reflections of previous inner pictures. If you keep changing the picture, the reflection must change in time, because you will not keep making the same choices. But you must stop demanding instant proof as the price of belief. That's like planting a seed and digging it up every day to check if it's growing. You don't grow anything that way. So instead, you measure proof differently. You look for internal proof first. Are you calmer? Are you clearer? Are you less reactive? Are you making better decisions? Are you walking away from what drains you? Are you showing up more consistently? That is proof. Because inner change is the real cause. Outer change is the effect. Now here is the ethical law of this power, because it matters. Do not use the inner image to escape responsibility. The inner image is not, "I will be rich while I remain undisciplined." It's not, "I will be loved while I remain guarded and cruel." It's not, "I will succeed while I remain inconsistent." The image must be paired with an identity that produces the result. So the right question is, what would the version of me who already has this do today? Then you take one small action that matches the picture. One call, one page, one workout, one boundary, one honest conversation, 1 hour of focus. This is how the inner and outer worlds become synchronized, and when they synchronize, momentum becomes frighteningly real. Now you're ready for the next ability, because once your inner image becomes deliberate, you begin to realize something even deeper. Your mind is not only a projector, it is a receiver. And sometimes the images that arrive in you are not memories and not fantasies. They are signals, dreams that feel like messages, sudden flashes of insight that arrive complete, warnings that come in symbols, guidance that appears in sleep when the conscious mind finally loosens its grip. That is the next power. The power of the dreaming mind and the hidden language it uses to speak to you. Let's go there. Chapter 4. The Power of the Dreaming Mind. Every night, you leave the ordinary world. Your body stays in a bed, but your awareness loosens its grip on the surface, and the deeper mind begins to speak in its native language. Symbol, feeling, scene, repetition. Most people treat dreams like random noise, a leftover mess from the day, a strange movie with no meaning. But consider what's actually happening. When you fall asleep, the conscious mind, the part that argues, edits, denies and performs, goes quiet. And in that quiet, the subconscious can finally do what it was designed to do. Process patterns, resolve emotional tension, and deliver guidance without being interrupted by your rational defenses. That's why you can ignore a truth all day and then dream it with brutal honesty at night. Your dreaming mind is not trying to entertain you, it is trying to correct you. It shows you what you avoid. It reveals what you suppress. It highlights what your logic refuses to admit. And sometimes, when the channel is clear, it does something even more startling. It warns you. It prepares you. It hands you insight before the event arrives. You've felt this, even if you've never said it out loud. You wake up with a strange heaviness and later discover bad news. You dream of a person you haven't spoken to in years, and the next day, they contact you. You dream a solution to a problem you couldn't solve awake, and in the morning it feels obvious. Most people call that a coincidence. But the more you train this power, the less coincidence you see. Because you begin to understand a principle, the subconscious is always listening, always calculating, always connecting dots, and sleep gives it the space to assemble the message. Now here's the mistake that ruins this power for people. They try to interpret dreams like a puzzle to solve, and they get lost in symbols. Dreams are not primarily intellectual, they are emotional information. The meaning is not always in the object, it's in the feeling the object produces. A dream of water for one person can mean cleansing. For another, it can mean overwhelm. A dream of fire can mean passion for one, danger for another. A dream of being chased can mean fear, avoidance, pressure, or guilt, depending on the emotional tone. So don't begin with the symbol. Begin with the sensation. Ask, what was the dominant feeling? Because that feeling is often the truth you're rehearsing in your nervous system. And your nervous system, whether you know it or not, is creating your future. Let's ground this in something practical. Your daily life is built on unconscious rehearsals. You rehearse worry. You rehearse self-doubt. You rehearse conflict. You rehearse scarcity. You rehearse I'm behind. Even if you don't say those words, you repeat the state. Then at night, the subconscious takes those rehearsals and turns them into images, because images are its language. So when you dream of missing a train, arriving too late, losing your phone, forgetting something important, your dreaming mind might be showing you the pattern of, I'm not safe unless I control everything. It's not predicting a literal missed train. It's revealing a hidden program. And once you see the program, you can change it. That is the real power of dreams. Not fortune-telling, but inner diagnosis. Now, here is where this becomes a tool. You can train your dreaming mind to give you useful guidance, not by force, but by invitation. Tonight, or within the next 24 hours, do this before sleep. Keep it simple. Don't make it mystical, make it precise. Choose one question, not 10. 1. Something real. Something you need clarity on. Example, what am I not seeing about this decision? Or, what is the next step for me? Or, what belief is blocking me right now? Speak it inwardly once. Not like begging, like giving instructions. Calm, clean. Then add one sentence. Show me in a way I will understand. And then you let it go. You do not strain. You do not chase, because chasing creates tension, and tension blocks reception. Now, when you wake up, don't immediately grab your phone. Don't let the outer world smash into you before you collect what your inner world offers. Instead, stay still for 10 seconds and ask, what do I remember? Even if it's a fragment, even if it's a feeling, even if it's one image, write it down. This is important. Your subconscious notices what you respect. If you honor the message by recording it, you train the system to send clearer messages. If you ignore it, the system learns, this doesn't matter, and the channel dulls. Now, there's another dimension of this power, one that makes people uncomfortable because it challenges the modern belief that consciousness is only a byproduct of the brain. Sometimes you dream of something you could not have known, not because you are special, but because the mind is not as isolated as you were taught. There is an intelligence beneath the surface that connects things before they appear connected. Call it pattern recognition. Call it deep intuition. Call it the field of life itself. The label is less important than the result. Sometimes you receive a warning early enough to change your choice, and that is the definition of power. But again, this requires ethics. If you become obsessed with prediction, you become anxious. You start searching for signs in everything. You turn your dreams into threats. And you lose the gift because fear distorts perception. So the ethical law is this: use dreams for guidance and correction, not for paranoia. Your dreaming mind is not your enemy. It is your ally. It is your inner physician. It is your private teacher. Now, let me give you the final key, because this one separates ordinary dreaming from useful dreaming. A dream becomes powerful when you connect it to one action, not 20, one. If you dream of a closed door, maybe the action is to stop knocking where you're not wanted. If you dream of drowning, maybe the action is to reduce overload and reclaim peace. If you dream of flying, maybe the action is to stop shrinking and take the step you've avoided. If you dream of losing your voice, maybe the action is to speak the truth you keep swallowing. One dream, one interpretation, one action. That's how the subconscious learns. My guidance changes life. And when the subconscious learns that, it becomes more active in helping you. Now you're ready for the next ability, because once you recognize that the mind communicates through feeling, image, and state, you begin to notice something else. Your words are not merely descriptions, they are commands. And the most powerful words are not the ones you speak out loud. They are the ones you repeat in secret, inside your own mind, about yourself, about life, about what is possible. The next power is the power of the inner voice, the power of the spoken word within. And if you master it, you will change the pattern that produces everything else. Chapter 5. The Power of the Inner Voice. There is a conversation happening inside you that never stops, even when you're silent, even when you're smiling, even when you're fine. A private voice keeps narrating your life, explaining what things mean, predicting what will happen next, interpreting people's reactions, and quietly deciding what you deserve. And here is the part most people never realize. That voice is not just describing your reality, it is building it. Because the subconscious mind accepts your repeated inner words as instructions. Not because it's mystical, but because that's how a mind learns. Through suggestion, through repetition, through emotional emphasis. If you continually tell yourself, "This never works," your nervous system starts to behave as if effort is pointless. If you continually tell yourself, "People can't be trusted," you begin to notice betrayal everywhere and close doors before they can open. If you continually tell yourself, "I'm always behind," you create urgency and pressure that make you sloppy. And then you create more evidence that you're behind. Most people are not living life. They are living the inner narration of life, and the narration is often harsher than the truth. Now, if you want to understand why this power is so important, look at what happens in a crisis. Two people face the same situation: a setback, rejection, financial stress, a conflict, a mistake. One collapses, the other stabilizes. What's the difference? It isn't luck, it isn't personality, it isn't intelligence, it's the inner voice. One person's inner voice says, "This is the end, I knew it, you're doomed." The other person's inner voice says, "This is information. This is a test." We adjust and move. Same circumstance, different command, and life follows the command. Because the subconscious doesn't obey your wishes. It obeys your dominant inner speech, especially when it's charged with emotion. The sentences you repeat under pressure become the blueprint the subconscious uses to shape behavior. This is why some people seem blessed. Not because the universe favors them, but because their inner voice is loyal to their future instead of loyal to their fear. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. You didn't choose your inner voice. You inherited it. It was trained into you by repetition, family tone, social conditioning, early experiences, embarrassing moments, authority figures, the culture's noise, the comparisons, the shame. At some point, you absorbed a voice that sounded like realism, but was actually programming, and you've been calling it me. But it's not you, it's a pattern, and patterns can be replaced. Here is the first shift you must make if you want this power to work. Stop treating your inner voice as truth. Treat it as a suggestion, because the moment you identify with it, you become its prisoner. You argue with life from inside your own skull. You sabotage yourself while thinking you're being honest. The moment you observe it, you become free to choose a new command, and that choice is the real power. So let's make this practical. Right now, your inner voice is doing one of three things most of the day. It is either building you up, tearing you down, or keeping you in limbo with endless maybe and later. Most people live in the third category. They don't actively insult themselves, but they keep their mind in a fog. Someday. When things calm down. Once I feel ready. Maybe next week. That fog is quite sabotaging, because the subconscious cannot build a life on maybe. The subconscious builds on certainty. It builds on repetition. It builds on the sentence you keep returning to. So the first discipline is to identify your dominant inner sentence. Not the sentence you say in public. The sentence you say in private when you're tired, stressed, and alone. That sentence is your real command. It might be, I always mess things up. It might be, nothing changes. It might be, I'm not good enough. It might be, I'll try, but it probably won't work. It might be, people like me don't get ahead. Whatever it is, don't judge yourself for it. Just notice it, because awareness breaks unconscious repetition. Now comes the second discipline, replacement. Not with fantasy, with authority. The subconscious rejects statements that feel like a lie. So you don't replace I'm a failure with I'm the greatest person alive. That's not training, that's performance. You replace it with a sentence that feels believable but upgraded. Something your mind can accept as a new direction. If your old sentence is, nothing ever works, your new sentence becomes, I learn fast, and things improve when I persist. If your old sentence is, I'm always behind, your new sentence becomes, I move one step at a time and I finish what matters. If your old sentence is, I can't change, your new sentence becomes, I can change patterns and I'm changing one today. If your old sentence is, people don't respect me, your new sentence becomes, I respect myself and I teach people how to treat me. These are not chants. They are commands. But here's the key. You don't repeat them when you feel good. You repeat them when you feel triggered. Triggers are when the subconscious is most open to suggestion. When emotion rises, the mind becomes impressionable. That's why trauma imprints so deeply. And that's why you can reprogram faster than you think, if you use emotion as a doorway, not a prison. So the practice is simple. The moment you catch the old inner voice, you interrupt it with a new command. Not after 10 minutes, not after the damage. Right then, you don't argue with the old voice, you replace it. You say the new sentence once, slowly, with presence. Then you take one small action that matches it. If your new command is, "I finish what matters," your action is 10 minutes of focused work. If your new command is, "I respect myself," your action is one boundary, one honest sentence, one refusal to beg. If your new command is, "I learn fast," your action is one attempt, one test, one small experiment. This is how inner speech becomes reality, because inner speech changes state, state changes behavior, behavior changes result. Now, let me warn you about the thing that will try to stop you. The old inner voice will say, "This is fake." Of course it will, because it is losing power. It has lived in you like a ruler, and now you are questioning its authority. When that resistance arises, don't panic. Don't stop. That resistance is proof you touched the root. And here is the deeper secret. You don't win by shouting louder. You win by being consistent. The subconscious is impressed more by calm repetition than by emotional explosions. So you become steady. You repeat the upgraded command morning and night, but especially when the old pattern appears. And slowly, something changes that feels almost supernatural, but is actually the result of training. You begin to believe what you were saying, not because you forced belief, because the subconscious accepted it through repetition and proof comes from action. That is why this power is real. Now, there is a final piece that makes the inner voice unstoppable. You must be careful what you allow yourself to say inwardly about other people and about life. Because your inner voice doesn't only shape your confidence, it shapes your expectations. If you are constantly narrating the world as hostile, you will feel unsafe everywhere. If you are constantly narrating people as selfish, you will live guarded and lonely. If you are constantly narrating life as unfair, you will miss the openings that require optimism to see. So choose one governing sentence about life itself. One sentence that becomes your inner climate. Something like, "Life responds to the state I live in," or "I am guided when I am calm," or "What I persist in becomes my reality," or "The inner world comes first." Let that sentence become your anchor, because in a storm, you don't need new information, you need a stable command. Now we move into the next ability, because once your inner voice becomes deliberate, you discover the next layer. Your words don't only guide your mind, they charge your body, they influence your energy, your confidence, your timing, your presence. And when your words and emotions align, you become coherent, powerful in a way people can feel without explanation. The next power is the power of focused will, the ability to hold a single intention without leaking it through doubt, distraction, and inner contradiction. Let's go there next.
Chapter 6. The Power of Focused Will. Most people believe willpower is something you either have or you don't. They think it's a personality trait, like height or accent. But will is not a trait. Will is a skill of attention, and attention is the most valuable currency you own, because whatever you hold in attention long enough becomes a pattern, and whatever becomes a pattern becomes a result. Here is why your life sometimes feels hard. Even when you're intelligent, your energy leaks, not because you're weak, because you're divided. You want change, but you keep rehearsing doubt. You want progress, but you keep feeding distractions. You want peace, but you keep returning to inner arguments. So your mind becomes like a flashlight, shaking in the dark, never resting on one place long enough to reveal anything clearly. Focused will is the ability to hold the beam steady, to choose one direction and stop negotiating with yourself every hour, to decide, and then remain loyal to the decision, not through force, but through alignment. Because here's the secret that changes everything. You don't force will, you stop sabotaging it. Most people aren't lacking will, they're exhausting it by constantly restarting. They decide, then doubt. They begin, then look for reassurance. They move, then check if it's working. And every time they check, they leak energy. It's like trying to fill a cup while poking holes in the bottom. So the first act of focused will is not intensity. It is closure. Closure means you stop keeping the exit door open in your mind. You stop saying, I'll try. You stop saying, let's see. You stop saying, maybe. Because maybe is a slow poison. The subconscious cannot build a life on hesitation. The subconscious builds on direction. Now, let me ground this in something you can feel. Have you ever noticed that the moment you truly decide, without drama, without announcements, your body relaxes, not because the challenge disappears, but because the inner war stops. Decision ends the war. Indecision keeps it alive. So focused will begins with a quiet sentence that must become real in you. I have chosen, not I hope, not I want, not I might. I have chosen, and once you choose, you do something that most people avoid. You accept the discomfort of consistency. Because consistency is boring to the undisciplined mind. It wants novelty, it wants stimulation, it wants quick proof, it wants dopamine. But your destiny, whatever you mean by that word, is rarely built by novelty. It's built by repetition, the kind of repetition that trains the subconscious to say, this is who we are now. Now, here's where this becomes a power, not just a productivity tip. When you can hold one intention steadily, you begin to generate an inner force that other people can feel. Your presence becomes heavier, cleaner, more coherent. You speak differently because you're not asking for permission. You walk differently because your mind isn't begging for evidence. You become dangerous to your old limitations because you stop feeding them with attention. And attention is the fuel of all mental patterns. So how do you train focused will? You train it the same way you train a muscle, with small, repeated acts. Not by promising yourself you'll change your whole life tomorrow. That's not will, that's fantasy. Will is built through micro-loyalty, keeping small promises to yourself until your subconscious begins to trust you, because many people don't lack confidence. They lack self-trust. They've broken too many agreements with themselves. They've said, I will, and then didn't. So the subconscious learned, his word means nothing. Chapter 6. The power of focused will. Most people believe willpower is something you either have or you don't. They think it's a personality trait, like height or accent. But will is not a trait. Will is a skill of attention, and attention is the most valuable currency you own, because whatever you hold in attention long enough becomes a pattern, and whatever becomes a pattern becomes a result. Here is why your life sometimes feels hard, even when you're intelligent. Your energy leaks, not because you're weak, because you're divided. You want change, but you keep rehearsing doubt. You want progress, but you keep feeding distractions. You want peace, but you keep returning to inner arguments. So your mind becomes like a flashlight, shaking in the dark, never resting on one place long enough to reveal anything clearly. Focused will is the ability to hold the beam steady, to choose one direction and stop negotiating with yourself every hour, to decide, and then remain loyal to the decision, not through force, but through alignment. Because here's the secret that changes everything. You don't force will, you stop sabotaging it. Most people aren't lacking will, they're exhausting it by constantly restarting. They decide, then doubt. They begin, then look for reassurance. They move, then check if it's working. And every time they check, they leak energy. It's like trying to fill a cup while poking holes in the bottom. So the first act of focused will is not intensity. It is closure. Closure means you stop keeping the exit door open in your mind. You stop saying, "I'll try," you stop saying, "Let's see." You stop saying, "Maybe." Because maybe is a slow poison. The subconscious cannot build a life on hesitation. The subconscious builds on direction. Now, let me ground this in something you can feel. Have you ever noticed that the moment you truly decide, without drama, without announcements, your body relaxes, not because the challenge disappears, but because the inner war stops? Decision ends the war. Indecision keeps it alive. So focused will begins with a quiet sentence that must become real in you. I have chosen, not I hope, not I want, not I might. I have chosen, and once you choose, you do something that most people avoid. You accept the discomfort of consistency. Because consistency is boring to the undisciplined mind. It wants novelty, it wants stimulation, it wants quick proof, it wants dopamine. But your destiny, whatever you mean by that word, is rarely built by novelty. It's built by repetition, the kind of repetition that trains the subconscious to say, "This is who we are now." Now, here's where this becomes a power, not just a productivity tip. When you can hold one intention steadily, you begin to generate an inner force that other people can feel. Your presence becomes heavier, cleaner, more coherent. You speak differently because you're not asking for permission. You walk differently because your mind isn't begging for evidence. You become dangerous to your old limitations because you stop feeding them with attention, and attention is the fuel of all mental patterns. So how do you train focused will? You train it the same way you train a muscle, with small, repeated acts. Not by promising yourself you'll change your whole life tomorrow. That's not will, that's fantasy. Will is built through micro-loyalty, keeping small promises to yourself until your subconscious begins to trust you, because many people don't lack confidence. They lack self-trust. They've broken too many agreements with themselves. They've said, "I will," and then didn't. So the subconscious learned, his word means nothing. The power of the living body, the ability to sense, direct, and restore your state through the body itself. Because the body is not separate from consciousness. It is consciousness made visible. Let's move into that. Chapter 7. The Power of the Living Body. Your body is not just a machine you drag through life. It is a living instrument of consciousness. And if that sounds too mystical, look at what you already know from direct experience. Your thoughts change your breathing, your posture, your digestion, your energy, your sleep. Your emotions alter your voice, your facial expression, your immune response, your appetite, and your motivation. Your inner state writes itself into your muscles without asking permission. So the body is not separate from the mind. It is the mind made physical, which means something practical and powerful. If you learn to read the body, you learn to read your inner world. And if you learn to influence the body, you can influence your inner world faster than most people believe possible. This is the seventh hidden power, the one many people accidentally experience, but rarely understand. The body can become a compass, a healer, a transmitter, a reset button. And the reason this matters is simple. Many people try to change their lives purely through thought, but they remain trapped because their body is still rehearsing the old state. They say, "I want peace," but their nervous system is trained for urgency. They say, "I want confidence," but their chest collapses, their breath is shallow, their muscles are tight, and their body keeps broadcasting fear. They say, "I want clarity," but they live overstimulated, sleep-deprived, and emotionally flooded. So they change ideas, but they don't change state. And the state is what produces behavior. This is why the living body is so important. It's the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It's the place where intention becomes real. Now, what does this power actually look like? It looks like being able to walk into stress and not become it. It looks like being able to sense when a conversation is draining you and return to the center before you get pulled under. It looks like being able to shift your emotional state deliberately without needing the external world to cooperate. It looks like being able to feel the difference between anxiety and intuition, between excitement and obsession, between fatigue and resistance. Because the body is always speaking. Your only job is to stop ignoring it. Here's the first truth. Your body stores patterns, not only memories, but habits of tension. If you spent years bracing for criticism, your shoulders learn to lift. If you spent years feeling unsafe, your breath learned to shorten. If you spent years suppressing anger, your jaw learned to clench. If you spent years carrying responsibility alone, your back learned to tighten. And those tensions are not just physical, they are emotional programs, which means that when you try to think positive while your body is still braced for threat, you are asking the mind to override a deeper command. It's like trying to drive forward while the emergency brake is still on. So the seventh power begins with a decision. I will train my nervous system to feel safe in the direction I'm going. Because safety is not just a circumstance, it's a state you can cultivate. Now, here's a practice that works immediately, not because it's magical, but because it speaks the language of your biology. It's called the 3-breath reset. When you feel overwhelmed, anxious, irritated, or mentally foggy, do this. Breath 1. Inhale slowly and let your shoulders drop on the exhale. You are telling your body, we are not under attack. Breath 2. Inhale again, slightly deeper, and soften your face and jaw on the exhale. You are releasing the mask of tension the body wears all day. Breath 3. Inhale again, and on the exhale, place your attention in the center of your chest for 2 seconds. Not as drama, as presence. Then silently say, I am here. This takes under 20 seconds, and what it does is astonishing. It interrupts the old pattern. It returns you to your own energy. It brings you back from mental noise into embodied clarity. Now, you might think, that's too simple. But simplicity is what the subconscious obeys. Complexity is what the anxious mind demands. The real power is not in complicated rituals. The power is in repeated resets until your body learns a new default state. Because the body learns by repetition, just like the subconscious. Now, let's talk about the part people avoid: sensitivity. Some listeners will recognize this immediately. Sometimes your hands feel warm when you're calm. Sometimes you feel a tingling when you're focused. Sometimes you can feel someone's presence without looking. Sometimes you get a sensation in the gut when something is off. This is the body's subtle intelligence. Chapter 7. The power of the living body. Your body is not just a machine you drag through life. It is a living instrument of consciousness. And if that sounds too mystical, look at what you already know from direct experience. Your thoughts change your breathing, your posture, your digestion, your energy, your sleep. Your emotions alter your voice, your facial expression, your immune response, your appetite, and your motivation. Your inner state writes itself into your muscles without asking permission. So the body is not separate from the mind. It is the mind made physical, which means something practical and powerful. If you learn to read the body, you learn to read your inner world. And if you learn to influence the body, you can influence your inner world faster than most people believe possible. This is the seventh hidden power, the one many people accidentally experience, but rarely understand. The body can become a compass, a healer, a transmitter, a reset button. And the reason this matters is simple. Many people try to change their lives purely through thought, but they remain trapped because their body is still rehearsing the old state. They say, I want peace, but their nervous system is trained for urgency. They say, I want confidence, but their chest collapses, their breath is shallow, their muscles are tight, and their body keeps broadcasting fear. They say, "I want clarity," but they live overstimulated, sleep-deprived, and emotionally flooded, so they change ideas, but they don't change state. And the state is what produces behavior. This is why the living body is so important. It's the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It's the place where intention becomes real. Now, what does this power actually look like? It looks like being able to walk into stress and not become it. It looks like being able to sense when a conversation is draining you and return to the center before you get pulled under. It looks like being able to shift your emotional state deliberately, without needing the external world to cooperate. It looks like being able to feel the difference between anxiety and intuition, between excitement and obsession, between fatigue and resistance. Because the body is always speaking. Your only job is to stop ignoring it. Here's the first truth. Your body stores patterns. Not only memories, but habits of tension. If you spent years bracing for criticism, your shoulders learn to lift. If you spent years feeling unsafe, your breath learned to shorten. Closing, the 7-day covenant. Before you leave this audiobook, let me give you something that keeps these ideas from dissolving back into interesting thoughts. Because the greatest danger is not that you didn't understand. The greatest danger is that you understood, and then went back to living the same way. The mind loves inspiration. It loves the glow of a new idea. But the subconscious doesn't change because you listened. It changes because you repeated something long enough to become a new normal. So here is the covenant. For the next 7 days, you will not try to master everything. You will choose one power one and train it like a quiet ritual. Not with obsession, with loyalty. If you want my honest recommendation, start with the one that your life is starving for most. If your life feels chaotic, train the 3-breath reset, and focus will because clarity begins in the body and attention. If your life feels stuck, train the inner image, because movement begins as a picture. If your life feels lonely or confusing, train emotional resonance with boundaries, because peace begins with discernment. If your life feels heavy, train the inner voice, because your private narration is either building you or burying you. And if your life feels uncertain, train inner knowing, because the first step is always invisible before it becomes visible. But whichever one you choose, do it with one rule. Don't wait to feel ready. Readiness is a feeling. Discipline is a decision. Now, let's make it real. Here is what 7 days look like. Day 1, you simply notice. You begin catching the old patterns in the act, the old inner sentence, the old stress response, the old mental movie, the old leak of attention. Not with shame, just with awareness. Day 2, you interrupt once, just once. One breath reset, one upgraded inner command, one new image, one boundary, one act of focus. Day 3, you repeat, and repetition is where power is born, not drama, not intensity. Repetition. Day 4, you will feel resistance. That's normal. The old identity doesn't die quietly. It will whisper, "This isn't working," because it fears losing the throne. Don't argue. Don't panic. Continue. Day 5, you'll notice a shift you can't fully explain, a calmer decision, a cleaner no, a sharper sense of timing, a smaller reaction, a steadier voice. It won't feel like fireworks. It will feel like control returning. Day 6, you'll begin trusting yourself again. Not because life became perfect, but because your inner world became less chaotic. That is the beginning of confidence. Day 7, something important happens. The subconscious starts to accept that this is not a temporary mood. This is the new direction. And once the subconscious accepts direction, it starts helping you. That is when change becomes natural. Now, listen closely, because this is the final truth that makes all 7 powers one. Your reality is not only what happens to you, it is what happens inside you in response. 2 people can live the same week and walk away with different futures because one rehearsed fear and the other rehearsed authority. One kept leaking attention and the other held one beam. One kept repeating the old sentence and the other chose a new command. The outer world is loud. It loves to distract you into reaction. But the inner world is first, and the person who learns to govern the inner world becomes a different kind of human being. Not perfect, not above pain, not immune to struggle, but no longer easily controlled by circumstances. That's the real remembering. So if you want a final instruction, one sentence to carry with you, here it is: return to center, choose your command, and act from the version of you that you're becoming, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's when the old self tries to survive. And that's when the new self is born. Thank you for listening, and if this transmission helped you, don't let it end here. Stay close to these teachings. Return to them, not for entertainment, but for reinforcement, because your future will not be built by what you consume once. It will be built by what you practice until it becomes you.